The faint smell of disinfectant hung in the air long after the final bell rang at Westwood Academy. The marble floors gleamed under the golden afternoon light, and the sound of laughter and footsteps faded as the last of the students climbed into waiting cars. The world outside was polished and privileged. Inside, beneath the echo of their polished shoes, another world quietly swept up behind them. Lily's small hands tightened around the wooden handle of her mother's old mop. It was taller than she was when she first learned to hold it, but now, at 16, she moved with a quiet rhythm, the kind that came from years of repetition. Her mother, Mrs. Bennett, worked silently beside her, her back slightly bent, her hair tucked under a faded scarf, her eyes tired but kind. Together, they were invisible. To the teachers, to the students, to everyone who walked those spotless halls, they were the ones who disappeared before dawn and returned long after the applause of the day was over. Lily didn't mind the silence. In fact, she found music in it, the soft squeak of her mop, the hum of the ceiling lights, the distant echo of a piano from the studio upstairs. That sound was her heartbeat. Every evening, as her mother wiped down the stair rails and dusted off the trophies that bore other girls' names, Lily listened to the piano like a secret invitation calling her closer. The dance studio was on the second floor, polished mirrors, wooden bars, and sunlight spilling across the smooth floorboards. Lily wasn't allowed inside, not officially. But every day, after finishing her share of cleaning, she'd pause by the glass door, her reflection faintly visible against the bright world inside. On the other side of that glass were the daughters of lawyers, politicians, and CEOs, girls with silk ribbons in their hair and parents who applauded from the audience seats. They wore soft pink tutus and brand new ballet slippers that gleamed like pearls. Their laughter echoed through the corridor, light and careless, like a melody that didn't belong to Lily's world. And yet, she couldn't look away. When the piano played, something inside her stirred. Her fingers twitched, her heart lifted, and her feet itched to move. She would stand quietly, memorizing every step, every turn, every graceful lift of their arms. Then, when the lights dimmed and the hallways emptied, she'd slip off her old sneakers and imitate them. The mop became her bar. The hallway, her stage. The echo of her own breath, her orchestra. In those stolen moments, Lily wasn't the janitor's daughter anymore. She was a dancer, a real one. She would spin until her reflection blurred in the window, her laughter mixing with the faint creak of the building. Her shoes had holes, her skirt was threadbare, but her movements carried something the others didn't, fire. Her mother often caught her in those quiet rehearsals. "You'll tire yourself, love," she'd say with gentle worry, leaning on her mop. "You've been working all day." "I'm not tired," Lily would reply, cheeks flushed, eyes bright. "I'm dancing." Mrs. Bennett would smile softly, though her eyes shone with sadness. She knew her daughter's dream was bigger than their means. Ballet lessons at Westwood cost more than her yearly salary. But she couldn't take that spark away from Lily. Not when it was the only thing that made her daughter's world glow. Sometimes, when no one was watching, Mrs. Bennett lingered by the studio door too, just to watch Lily move. In those moments, pride outweighed exhaustion. She didn't need riches or titles, her daughter's grace was worth more than both. But life at Westwood didn't make space for girls like Lily. During the day, she was invisible. The students passed her without a glance, tossing their trash in bins she emptied. Sometimes, they'd whisper cruel things when they thought she couldn't hear. "That janitor's kid is always lurking around. Creepy, isn't she? She probably wishes she was one of us." They weren't wrong, she did wish. But not for the pearls or ribbons or the applause. She wished for the chance to belong, to stand on that polished stage, to feel the weightless joy of dancing freely under the spotlight. Every night, when she returned to their small apartment on the edge of town, she would stretch in front of a cracked mirror. The wallpaper peeled, the ceiling dripped in places, but in her imagination, she was center stage. She practiced until her toes ached, tracing each step she remembered from the window. The neighbors downstairs often banged on the ceiling. She'd whisper an apology, then keep going. Dreams didn't come easy to people like her. But she refused to stop dreaming. One evening, after cleaning the auditorium, she wandered into the empty performance hall. The red velvet curtains hung heavy and still. Dust floated in the light from the stage lamps. She stepped into the center and stood there silently, imagining rows of faces watching her. Her heart beat faster. She closed her eyes and lifted her arms in the first position. For a moment, she danced. Alone, barefoot, her shadow moving gracefully across the empty seats. The echo of her movements filled the air like music only she could hear. Then she heard a voice. "Lily, what are you doing?" Her mother's tone wasn't angry, just tired. Lily froze mid-spin, her face flushing. "I was just pretending." Her mother sighed and walked toward her, setting down the bucket. "Pretending's fine, sweetheart. But don't let it hurt you when life doesn't pretend back." Lily swallowed hard. Maybe life just hasn't watched me dance yet. Her mother blinked, startled by the quiet certainty in her daughter's words. Then she reached out, cupping Lily's cheek. "Then one day, it will," she whispered. "Just don't stop trying." That night, as they locked up and walked home beneath the dim streetlights, Lily looked back at the academy's grand windows. The reflection of the chandelier glowed faintly, like a distant promise. She didn't know that someone had seen her that evening, someone watching from the balcony above, hidden behind the curtain. Victoria Hayes, the Academy's best ballerina, had paused mid-conversation when she noticed Lily twirling under the spotlight. A janitor's daughter dancing where she didn't belong. Victoria's lips curled into a slow smile, not admiration, but something colder. "Let's see," she murmured to her friends, "if she still dances that bravely when the lights are real." Down below, Lily and her mother disappeared into the night, one dreaming of a stage, the other praying the world wouldn't break her daughter before she reached it. The mop bucket's wheels creaked softly in the dark hallway, echoing like a quiet drumbeat, Lily's first rhythm, leading her unknowingly toward the moment that would change everything. The next morning dawned pale and gray, the kind of morning where the city seemed half asleep, its breath visible in the cold air. Lily clutched her mother's lunch pail and hurried down the cracked sidewalk toward Westwood Academy. Her sneakers, worn and faded, made soft slapping sounds against the stone. In her other hand, she carried a folded rag, her daily companion, the same one she used to wipe dust off the piano legs she wished she could play beside. When they reached the school gates, a sleek black car purred to a stop. Out stepped Victoria Hayes, her hair tied in a perfect bun, a soft pink scarf looped around her neck. The driver opened the door as if unveiling royalty. Lily instinctively stepped aside, lowering her gaze. Victoria didn't see her, didn't have to. In her world, Lily didn't exist. Her mother gave her a gentle pat on the shoulder. "Head to the classrooms, love. I'll take the main hall today." Lily nodded and made her way through the empty corridors. The scent of floor polish mixed with the faint perfume of roses left behind by student scarves. She knew the rhythm of this place, the creak of the wooden floor near the trophy case, the distant echo of laughter from the gym, the soft, haunting tune of the piano drifting down the stairs. That sound always stopped her. She followed it like a thread, climbing the steps quietly until she reached the wide glass window that framed the dance studio. Inside, the world looked like a dream. Sunlight streamed through the tall windows, falling in soft gold lines on polished floors. The girls glided like swans, each step measured, each turn graceful. Their white tutus fluttered with the music, catching the light like ripples on water. Madame Rousseau, tall and sharp-eyed, stood by the piano, tapping her cane with authority. "Back straight, Miss Hayes," she called, her voice crisp. "Grace doesn't come from posture, it comes from pride." "Yes, madam," Victoria replied, her tone polite but smug. She extended her arm elegantly, spinning into a flawless pirouette that drew applause from her classmates. Her movement was perfect, but it was also hollow. Lily could see it. The rhythm wasn't alive. It was practiced, precise, but missing the heartbeat that made dance real. Lily's fingers pressed lightly against the cold glass. She mouthed each count softly, eyes following every motion, memorizing each shift of balance, each bend of the wrist. She didn't have a teacher. She had this window, the fragile line between her world and theirs. Every pause in the music was a lesson. Every mistake, a whisper of possibility. When the class ended, the girls gathered around Madame Rousseau, chattering about costumes and the upcoming talent showcase. Lily lingered outside the door, listening. "I can't wait for the showcase," one of them said. "My father's flying in from Paris to see it." "My mother already reserved the front row," another added. Victoria smirked. "I'll be the closing act, of course." Their voices trailed off as they left. When the studio finally emptied, Lily pushed the door open slightly and peeked inside. The sunlight had softened to amber. Dust motes floated like tiny dancers in the air. Her breath caught in her throat. She stepped onto the floor, barefoot, quiet, reverent. The wood was cool beneath her skin. She closed her eyes and raised her arms, imitating the moves she'd memorized from the window. Her body followed the rhythm she'd replayed 1,000 times in her mind. One turn. 2 steps. Leap. For a few precious minutes, she belonged. The world outside faded. The echo of laughter was replaced by silence filled with purpose. She felt the music without needing it to play. Her reflection in the mirror wasn't the janitor's daughter, it was a dancer. Maybe one day, she whispered to herself, they'll see me too. Behind her, a soft creak echoed from the hallway. Lily froze. The door had shifted slightly open. She turned quickly, but there was no one. Only the faint sound of heels clicking away. She didn't know it, but Madame Rousseau had been watching. The older woman had come back to retrieve her notebook, only to find Lily dancing alone, imperfect yet passionate. Rousseau didn't interrupt. She merely watched, her expression unreadable, before slipping quietly out again. When Lily finished, she stood breathless in the center of the empty studio. Her hair clung to her forehead, her heart raced, but she felt lighter than air. She bowed softly to her invisible audience, then hurried out before the next class arrived. That night, at home, her mother noticed the quiet smile on her face. "You look like someone who's been kissed by magic," she said. "Maybe I was," Lily answered, setting down her bag. She didn't tell her mother about sneaking into the studio. It was their shared unspoken truth. Her mother knew she did it, and Lily knew she couldn't stop. Over the next few weeks, the ritual continued. Lily cleaned, then watched, then practiced. Her confidence grew with every evening session. Her muscles ached in new places, her feet blistered, but she never felt pain, only progress. The studio window became her teacher, her audience, her sanctuary. And slowly, the lines between her reflection and the girls inside began to blur. One afternoon, as she copied a routine outside the glass, the music suddenly stopped. The girls inside were watching her. Victoria's eyes narrowed, a sharp glint of mockery in them. She whispered something to her friends, and they all laughed. Lily's heart plummeted. She turned away quickly, pretending to wipe the window as if she'd been cleaning it the whole time. Her face burned with shame. That night, she stayed late after closing. The building was empty, silent except for the soft hum of the exit lights. She turned on the studio's small lamp, flooding the room with a golden glow. She stepped into the light and whispered, "Let's try again." Her movements were slow at first, hesitant. Then the rhythm took over. She twirled, leaped, and spun until her reflection vanished in motion. Tears ran down her cheeks, not from sadness but from release. When she finished, she fell to her knees, breathing hard. The air felt charged, alive. "I will dance," she whispered to herself, voice trembling but fierce. "No matter who's watching, or who isn't." Outside, through the window, the moon hung low and white against the sky, its reflection shimmering on the studio floor. And from the shadows of the hallway, unseen yet again, Victoria Hayes stood with crossed arms and a faint smile. "So the janitor's daughter really thinks she can dance," she murmured. "Let's give her a chance to prove it." That night, as Lily walked home with her mother, her heart felt strangely light. She didn't know that her dream, the one she'd been nurturing through glass and silence, was about to step into the cruel light of the real world. Because the next time she'd stand before that window, she wouldn't be looking in. She'd be standing inside, under the spotlight, with every eye on her. And she'd have to decide whether she was ready for her dream to see her too. It was the kind of day that began with laughter echoing down the polished hallways, the laughter that didn't belong to Lily. The Academy's annual showcase was just a week away, and the energy inside Westwood pulsed with anticipation. Posters of ballerinas and velvet ribbons hung from every wall. The students rehearsed until sweat glistened on their brows, each hoping to be chosen for the final performance. For Lily, the week felt no different from any other. She carried her mop and bucket from room to room, her steps soft and measured. Yet behind her calm eyes, something had changed. She had been dancing longer hours each night, staying until the hum of the exit lights was her only company. Every time she cleaned the mirrors, she caught her reflection and whispered, "Someday." By afternoon, the studio blazed with sunlight. The senior girls rehearsed their sequence, a piece choreographed by Madame Rousseau herself. Lily lingered by the door as usual, peeking through the glass. The melody of the piano filled her chest like a heartbeat she couldn't silence. Victoria Hayes was in the center, graceful and commanding, her movements flawless. The other girls followed her lead like satellites orbiting a star. When the music ended, applause erupted from the small group of teachers watching. Victoria basked in it, her chin lifted high. Lily pressed her palms against the glass, eyes wide with admiration and envy. She copied Victoria's final pose without realizing the door had opened behind her. "Well, look who's playing ballerina." The voice sliced through her daydream. Lily froze, turning slowly. Victoria stood there with two of her friends, a cruel smile twisting her perfect lips. I was just cleaning," Lily stammered, stepping aside. The mop handle trembled in her hand. Victoria's eyes glimmered with amusement. Cleaning. Looked more like performing to me. Her friends giggled. Tell me, do you really think you can dance? You must, with how often you lurk around. I don't mean to. Oh, relax. Victoria's tone turned syrup sweet. We're just having fun. She glanced at her friends. Aren't we? The girls nodded eagerly. Then, with a theatrical sigh, Victoria stepped closer. You know, we're practicing for the showcase. Maybe you should show us what you've got. Lily blinked. What? Dance, Victoria said simply. Right here. Right now. The hallway went silent except for the faint hum of the lights. Lily's pulse thundered in her ears. She wanted to refuse, to walk away, but her feet felt rooted to the floor. Come on, one of the girls taunted. Didn't you say you love dancing? Let's see it. Lily looked past them toward the studio door. She could see the polished floor gleaming under sunlight, the empty piano bench, the quiet stage she had always dreamed of stepping onto. This was a trap, she knew it. The laughter in their eyes was too sharp, too ready. But something deeper inside her whispered, you've waited your whole life for a stage. Her throat went dry. She set the mop aside. Fine, she said softly. Victoria's smirk faltered for a heartbeat before returning, sharper than before. Perfect, she purred, motioning toward the studio. Let's give our janitor's daughter a spotlight. The other girls pushed open the doors and spilled inside, forming a loose circle around Lily. A few others, curious, began to gather at the windows. The sound of whispers spread like ripples across water. Start the music, Victoria ordered. A girl hurried to the piano, fingers striking the opening chords, a slow, melancholic tune. It was the same melody Lily had practiced night after night. Her body remembered before her mind could. She inhaled deeply, closed her eyes, and let the first note fill her lungs. Then she moved. A soft ply, a measured turn. Her bare feet slid gracefully across the wooden floor. The laughter that had filled the room moments before faded into stunned quiet. The rhythm took her, each movement flowing effortlessly into the next. Her body told a story words never could, of nights spent cleaning, of dreams formed through glass, of a hunger stronger than cruelty. She leaped into an arabesque, arms stretching like wings. The light caught her face, and for a moment, she glowed, not as the janitor's daughter, but as something untouchable. The piano faltered as the girl playing it forgot her place, staring in disbelief. Madame Rousseau entered the doorway mid-routine, stopping in her tracks. Her sharp eyes softened. She'd seen technique that could be taught, but what Lily had couldn't be taught at all. It was raw, wild beauty. Lily's final turn ended in perfect stillness. The air held its breath. Then came the sound of a single clap. Rousseau stepped forward slowly, her heels echoing on the floor. Who taught you this? She asked, voice low but firm. Lily swallowed hard, still trembling. No one, she whispered. I just watched. A stunned murmur rippled through the crowd. Impossible, one of the girls muttered. Victoria folded her arms, her smirk returning like armor. She's just copying what she's seen. That's not dancing, that's mimicry. But Madame Rousseau didn't look away from Lily. Show me your grand jeté, she said. Lily hesitated. The room was silent now, no whispers, no laughter, only the faint creak of the wooden floor beneath her toes. She took 3 running steps and leaped. For a heartbeat, she was airborne. Weightless. Free. When she landed, her body didn't wobble or falter. It was perfection, effortless, breathtaking perfection. Gasps erupted around her. Madame Rousseau's stern expression melted into awe. Victoria's face drained of color. "Enough," Rousseau said sharply, her voice echoing like a gavel. "This girl belongs in the showcase." The word struck the room like thunder. "The showcase?" one of the girls exclaimed. "But she's not even a student." Rousseau turned, eyes blazing. "Then she will be. I will see to it." Lily stood frozen, unable to believe what she was hearing. Her heart beat so fast she thought she might faint. Victoria tried to recover her composure. "Madam, that's highly irregular." "Art," Rousseau interrupted coldly, "doesn't bow to rules. It bows to truth. And I have just witnessed it." She turned back to Lily, her tone softening. "You have something special, child. Something no training can create." Lily's eyes filled with tears. "Thank you," she whispered. Rousseau nodded once. "Tomorrow, you begin formal lessons. And you will perform in the showcase." As the instructor left, the girls remained silent, their eyes following Lily. The mocking smiles were gone. Some looked confused, others jealous. But none of them laughed. Victoria stood motionless, her perfect poise cracking under the weight of disbelief. Lily bent to pick up her mop, the same tool that had always defined her place. For the first time, it felt like part of a story that no longer belonged to her. She turned to leave, her reflection glowing in the mirrors that once trapped her dreams. The janitor's daughter had danced, and the world had finally seen her. The night before the showcase, Westwood Academy didn't sleep. Inside its golden halls, students rushed through last-minute rehearsals, their laughter echoing off marble walls. Costumes hung neatly on racks, ribbons fluttered in the air, and the scent of hairspray lingered like mist. For most, this night was about performance and pride. For Lily, it was about proving she belonged on that stage at all. She sat alone in the dim corner of the studio, her worn-out ballet shoes resting in her lap. They weren't new or elegant like the others, just an old pair that Madame Rousseau had found in the storage closet and gifted her with quiet kindness. They fit imperfectly, the satin fraying near the toes, but to Lily, they were priceless. Her heart pounded as she tied the ribbons around her ankles. Every movement felt heavy with meaning. Tomorrow, the entire academy would be watching. The girls who once mocked her, the teachers who ignored her, the people who never looked twice, everyone would finally see her. Lily. She looked up. Madame Rousseau stood by the door, her sharp posture softened by a rare smile. "Go home, child. Rest. Tomorrow is not just about steps, it's about soul." Lily nodded. "I'll be ready." Rousseau hesitated, then said quietly, "Do not let fear lead you. The audience can smell it. Dance for yourself, not for them." When Lily finally left the academy that night, the moonlight painted the courtyard in silver. She paused by the large glass windows where she had once watched from the outside. Now she was on the other side. Her reflection looked back at her, a girl with tired eyes but unbroken spirit. "I made it," she whispered. But as she walked away, someone else stood in the shadows, Victoria Hayes, her expression unreadable. The day of the showcase arrived like a symphony of nerves and excitement. The auditorium buzzed with conversation. Parents in elegant attire filled the seats, their perfumes mixing with the faint scent of polished wood. Cameras clicked. Murmurs rose. On stage, thick velvet curtains concealed a world about to unfold. Backstage, chaos reigned. Dancers stretched, makeup artists rushed, and Madame Russo directed everyone with military precision. "Where is Miss Bennett?" Russo asked one of the assistants. "She's here, madam. Just finished warm-ups." Lily stood near the edge of the stage, her heart hammering in her chest. She peeked through the curtain at the glowing auditorium. Somewhere out there, her mother sat quietly in the back row, wearing her cleanest dress. Her hands were clasped tightly in her lap, eyes glistening with pride. When the lights dimmed and the first act began, Lily pressed a hand to her chest and whispered, "Please, let me be enough." Victoria performed third. Her routine was breathtaking, every spin calculated, every movement flawless. The crowd erupted in applause, some even standing to cheer. She bowed with confidence, her smile radiant. Then, as she stepped backstage, her eyes met Lily's. "Good luck, janitor's daughter," she said smoothly. "Try not to embarrass Madame Russo." Lily said nothing. Words would have broken her calm. When her name was announced, the lights changed. The stage became her universe. She stepped out slowly, barefoot, the shoes she'd carefully mended had broken minutes before. The audience murmured in confusion, but Lily didn't flinch. Her feet, raw from practice, had known harsher floors. The piano began, a soft, aching melody that swelled and rippled like memory. For a heartbeat, she saw herself at the window again, watching, wanting, unseen. Then she let it all go. Her first movement was a whisper, gentle, fluid. The audience leaned forward. Each turn grew stronger, her body bending and rising with impossible grace. She leaped into the air, her silhouette framed by golden light. The crowd gasped as she landed silently, seamlessly. This wasn't choreography. This was confession. Every motion spoke of nights cleaning floors, of quiet hunger, of invisible dreams blooming in darkness. Her arms swept wide, her gaze lifted to the rafters as if reaching for the life she'd been denied. Tears glistened on her cheeks, not from pain but from release. When the music slowed, she spun one final time, slowly, beautifully, and froze mid-turn, her chest heaving, her face lifted toward the light. Silence. A long, breathless silence. Then, applause. It started with a single pair of hands. Then another. Then 100. The room erupted. People rose to their feet, clapping, shouting, crying. Madame Russo covered her mouth, eyes shining. Even the headmaster, who had hesitated to let Lily perform, stood and applauded. Lily bowed deeply, her tears falling to the stage. In that moment, every cruel whisper, every night of exhaustion, every moment of invisibility dissolved into the thunder of recognition. She turned toward the wings and saw her mother standing there, tears streaming freely. Their eyes met. "You did it," Mrs. Bennett mouthed. Lily smiled through the blur of tears. "We did." After the performance, backstage was chaos again, only this time, it was filled with awe instead of mockery. Dancers who once avoided her came forward hesitantly. "You were incredible," one said softly. "I didn't know you could move like that," said another. Lily thanked them with quiet grace. She didn't need their approval anymore. Victoria stood apart, pale and silent, her eyes wide with disbelief. For the first time, her composure cracked. The flawless star had been eclipsed by the girl no one believed in. Madame Rousseau approached Lily, laying a hand on her shoulder. That, she said softly, was not just dance. That was truth. And truth always wins. Thank you, madam, Lily whispered. For seeing me. Rousseau smiled. The world will see you now too. As Lily turned to leave, a tall man in a tailored suit stepped out from the shadows near the curtain. His hair was silver at the temples, his presence commanding yet kind. That was extraordinary, he said. Alexander Grayson, New York Ballet Academy. Lily blinked, her breath catching. You're from? Yes, he interrupted gently, smiling. And we want you. Full scholarship. Immediate enrollment. The word struck her like lightning. For a moment, she couldn't speak. Her mother gasped behind her, covering her mouth. Lily stammered, tears flooding her eyes. I don't know what to say. Say yes, Grayson said simply. You've earned it. Later that night, the auditorium stood empty again. The stage lights dimmed to a soft glow, dust floating in golden shafts of light. Lily stood alone at the center, barefoot once more. She took one last slow spin, her shadow following her gracefully across the wooden floor. She whispered into the quiet, this is for every dreamer who wasn't supposed to be seen. And then she smiled, her reflection shimmering in the mirror as though bowing back. The janitor's daughter had danced, and the world would never look away again. Morning sunlight poured through the tall academy windows, flooding the polished halls with a golden glow. The showcase was over, but whispers of Lily's performance still lingered in every corner like echoes of a miracle. Teachers spoke her name with disbelief, students replayed her leap in their minds, and Madame Rousseau walked with a proud smile that made people step aside. For the first time, Lily Bennett wasn't invisible. She entered the studio the next day carrying her mother's old cleaning rag out of habit, but now her reflection in the glass door looked different. She was wearing a dancer's leotard, not her janitor's shirt. Her mother had cried when she first saw her in it, half pride, half disbelief. Feels strange, doesn't it? Madame Rousseau said, appearing behind her. Lily smiled faintly. It feels like I've stepped into someone else's life. No, Rousseau replied firmly. You've stepped into your own. From that day forward, Lily trained as both student and custodian of her dream. Her mornings began at dawn, sweeping the corridors with her mother, and by sunrise, she was in the studio, stretching until her muscles trembled. Rousseau pushed her harder than anyone else, not out of cruelty, but belief. Again, she would command as Lily fell out of a turn. Lily, gasping for breath, would nod. Again. Sweat became her language, pain her partner. She learned quickly that talent was only the beginning. Ballet demanded everything, the body, the will, the soul. Every night she returned home with aching feet and blistered toes, but when she closed her eyes, she still saw herself soaring under the spotlight. But not everyone celebrated her rise. Victoria Hayes watched her quietly from across the room, her perfect smile growing tighter by the day. Once untouchable, Victoria now found herself compared to the janitors. Daughter, whispers of natural grace and raw emotion following Lily wherever she went. It burned like acid in Victoria's chest. She's not special, she hissed one evening to her friends. She's just a charity project. Madame Rousseau's new pity case. But the more she tried to convince herself, the more she remembered that leap, that flawless, effortless leap that had stolen her applause. One Friday afternoon, Lily stayed behind after class. The room was empty, sunlight spilling across the mirrors. She moved slowly, repeating her sequence for the upcoming Academy Gala. Her reflection blurred in the light as she spun, lost in rhythm. She didn't hear the soft footsteps behind her until she stopped. Practicing alone again. Victoria's voice. Smooth, sharp, and smiling. Lily straightened, forcing calm. Madame Rousseau said I could stay and practice. Of course she did. Victoria crossed her arms, her designer bag slung over one shoulder. Our little prodigy must keep working. Lily ignored the bite in her words. Everyone's working. Not like you, Victoria said softly. You work like you're trying to prove something. Lily hesitated. Maybe I am. Victoria tilted her head. Then prove it at the gala. Let's see if you can handle real pressure. She turned and walked away, her heels tapping a rhythm that sounded like mock applause. When the door shut, Lily exhaled shakily. Her stomach twisted, not with fear, but with the weight of challenge. The following weeks were relentless. Madame Rousseau intensified the training. Your performance at the showcase was extraordinary, she told Lily, but brilliance once is chance. Brilliance again is mastery. Lily danced until her legs shook, her breath catching in gasps. There were mornings she woke before dawn, unable to move from soreness. Her mother would gently rub her feet and whisper, "Dreams cost pain, sweetheart. But not your soul, never let them take that." At school, the admiration had turned into scrutiny. Some students looked at her with awe, others with envy. When she entered the studio, conversation stopped. She had become a symbol, of hope to some, of threat to others. One evening, she returned to the dressing room after class to find her locker door slightly open. Her ballet shoes were gone. Her heart dropped. Inside lay only a crumpled note. The letters were sharp, deliberate. Stay in your place, janitor's daughter. Lily's hands shook. The room blurred with humiliation. She knew who had done it. That night, she danced barefoot. The cold floor bit into her skin, but she didn't stop. Her steps were raw, defiant, a declaration to no one but herself. Madame Rousseau walked in halfway through, watching silently. When Lily finally collapsed, panting, Rousseau spoke softly. Why barefoot? My shoes were taken. Rousseau's eyes flickered with anger but softened quickly. Then dance without them. The soul doesn't need satin. Lily nodded through tears. 2 nights before the gala, disaster struck. During a rehearsal, as the dancers practiced their synchronized leaps, Victoria accidentally brushed Lily's shoulder midair. Lily lost her balance and fell hard, her ankle twisting under her weight. Pain exploded up her leg. The room went silent. Madame Rousseau rushed over. Lily. Victoria pressed a hand to her mouth, feigning shock. Oh no, I didn't see her. Quiet. Rousseau snapped. She knelt beside Lily. Can you stand? Lily bit her lip hard, forcing herself upright. The pain was sharp, hot. I'm fine, she said through clenched teeth. You're not, Rousseau replied sternly. No dancing for 2 days. Tears stung Lily's eyes. But the gala. 2 days, Rousseau repeated, leaving no room for argument. If you dance injured, you'll destroy everything you've built. Lily nodded silently, blinking back tears. That night, she sat by the window of their small apartment, her ankle wrapped tightly in cloth. The city lights blurred below, and her mother sat beside her, sewing a patch onto her cleaning uniform. "You could rest, you know," her mother said gently. "You've already proven enough." Lily shook her head. "Not yet. Not until I show them I deserve this chance." Mrs. Bennett sighed and took her daughter's hand. "Then promise me one thing, dance because you love it, not because you're angry." Lily looked at her, eyes glistening. "I promise." The next day, she hobbled back to the studio on a wrapped ankle. Madame Rousseau frowned the moment she saw her. "You should be in bed." "I needed to be here," Lily said quietly. "Even if I can't move, I can watch." Rousseau studied her, then nodded. "Sit, then. Watch. Let your mind dance." And she did. Every beat, every count, every breath of the other dancers, Lily absorbed it all like sunlight. She visualized every motion in her mind until her fingers twitched with rhythm. When the others left, Rousseau handed her a cup of tea and said softly, "You remind me of myself when I was young. But I didn't have the courage to fight the world you are fighting now. Don't let it break you." Lily smiled faintly. "It won't." That night, alone again, she stood in front of the mirror. Her ankle throbbed, her reflection looked pale, but her spirit blazed. She whispered to herself, "They can take my shoes, my comfort, my peace, but not my dance." She took one small step forward, balancing carefully. Another. Then another. And soon, the pain melted into motion. Her bare feet traced patterns across the floor, the rhythm pulsing through her like a heartbeat she could never silence. Every turn, every breath, every drop of sweat was the price she paid for passion. And she paid it willingly. Because for Lily Bennett, dancing wasn't just movement. It was survival. The morning of the gala arrived with rain, a steady, misty drizzle that painted the academy courtyard in silver. The marble steps gleamed like mirrors as umbrellas bobbed in the air, carrying the parents and patrons of Westwood Academy's most anticipated night of the year. Inside, the atmosphere pulsed with nervous energy. The scent of hairspray, perfume, and polished wood filled the backstage corridors. Lily stood by the window of the dressing room, her reflection ghosted in the glass. Her ankle was still sore, wrapped tightly beneath the ribbons of her shoes. She moved carefully, testing her weight on it. Pain lanced through her leg, but she bit her lip and straightened. She had faced worse, laughter, mockery, invisibility, and she had survived them all. This pain would not be the thing that stopped her. "Are you sure about this?" Madame Rousseau asked softly behind her. The instructor's usual firmness had melted into worry. "You can withdraw. No one will think less of you." Lily turned, eyes clear and fierce. "I can't," she said. "Not after everything." Rousseau studied her in silence, then nodded. "Then promise me one thing. When you step on that stage, forget your pain. Forget them. Just dance." Lily smiled faintly. "I always do." Backstage was a whirl of color and tension. Sequins glimmered under the bright bulbs, and the rustle of tulle filled the air. Victoria stood near the mirror, surrounded by her friends, her expression serene, too serene. Every so often, her gaze flicked toward Lily, cool and dismissive. "Break a leg," she said sweetly as Lily passed. Lily stopped, her hand brushing the wooden railing. "You almost made sure of that already," she replied softly. Victoria's smile wavered, but only for a moment. "You don't belong here," she whispered, her voice low enough for only Lily to hear. "You're a momentary spectacle, a story they'll forget by next season." Lily met her eyes calmly. "Maybe," she said. "But tonight, they'll remember." She walked away before Victoria could reply. When the lights dimmed and the curtain lifted for the first act, Lily stood in the wings, her heart pounding like a drum. The stage glowed under golden light, the audience a sea of shadows and expectant eyes. Victoria's group performed before hers, a flawless display of elegance and precision. Every turn was measured, every smile rehearsed. The crowd applauded loudly, but their clapping felt distant, polite. Then came Lily's turn. Her heart thundered as she stepped toward the curtain. Madame Rousseau squeezed her shoulder. "You've already won, my dear," she whispered. "Now show them why." Lily nodded and walked into the light. For a moment, everything went quiet. The stage stretched endlessly before her, polished, bright, alive. The piano began, soft and uncertain, like a heartbeat finding its rhythm. Lily closed her eyes, took a deep breath, and began to move. Her first step sent pain shooting up her leg, but she kept going. Every muscle screamed, yet every movement flowed like silk. Her arms rose, delicate yet strong, tracing stories in the air. Her bare feet, she had discarded her shoes moments before stepping out, pressed firmly against the wood, connecting her to the earth, to her roots, to everything she was fighting for. Gasps rippled through the crowd. The audience could see her limp, could see her struggle, but they also saw something else. Determination. Grace born of pain. The music swelled, and Lily spun, each turn faster, tighter, more precise. Her hair came loose, catching the stage lights as it flowed behind her like a golden veil. The rhythm built, and her movements grew bolder, her expression fierce and radiant. She leaped, a grand jeté that defied pain and expectation. For a heartbeat, she hung suspended in air, her body weightless, her soul unbound. When she landed, her ankle buckled slightly, but she steadied herself. The audience held their breath. She pushed forward, continuing the dance, transforming every tremor of pain into beauty. The final notes of the piano whispered through the hall. Lily slowed, her breathing ragged. Her last movement was not a perfect pose, not the flawless ending of a trained professional, it was a bow of surrender and triumph, raw and human. And then, silence. It was the kind of silence that comes before a storm. Then it began, one clap, then another, then a wave of applause so loud it seemed to shake the chandeliers. People stood. They cheered, cried, shouted her name. Mrs. Bennett, sitting in the back row, pressed her hands over her mouth, tears streaming down her face. She whispered through trembling lips, "That's my daughter." Madame Rousseau's eyes glistened with pride as she whispered, "Bravo, my child. Bravo." Backstage, Lily limped off the stage, her chest heaving. She collapsed into a chair, laughter bubbling out of her like sunlight through rain. The pain in her ankle throbbed with every heartbeat, but it didn't matter. She had done it. She looked up to find Madame Rousseau kneeling before her, eyes shining. "You danced with your soul tonight," she said quietly. "And no one, not even time, can take that away." "Did I do well?" Lily asked, her voice trembling with exhaustion. Rousseau smiled softly. "You didn't just dance well, Lily. You reminded us why we dance at all." As the applause roared beyond the curtain, Victoria walked past, her costume glittering, her expression unreadable. She paused, her jaw tight. "You were good," she said quietly, without looking at Lily. Maybe even great. Lily met her gaze, her voice calm. Thank you. Victoria hesitated, her confidence wavering under the warmth of Lily's sincerity. Then she turned sharply and left. For the first time, Lily didn't feel smaller than her. She felt free. Later that night, the auditorium emptied. The stage was quiet again, lit only by the faint glow of a single spotlight left burning in the rafters. Lily stepped back onto the wooden floor, barefoot. Once more, her reflection faint in the dark mirror. The air was thick with the memory of music and applause. She turned slowly, her steps soft, her shadow following her across the stage. This time, she wasn't dancing for survival or approval. She was dancing because she had finally earned her place here, through pain, through grace, through will. Each step was a reminder, the girl who once cleaned these floors was now the one they cheered for. Her bare feet whispered against the wood as she moved, slow and steady, until she stopped in the center of the light. She looked up at the empty balcony and smiled through the quiet tears. I made it, Mom, she whispered. We made it. Outside, the rain had stopped. The courtyard shimmered under moonlight, puddles reflecting the glow of the academy windows. Inside, the janitor's daughter stood barefoot on the grand stage, the ache in her ankle forgotten. And though no music played, she kept moving, softly, gracefully, because for Lily Bennett, the dance never truly ended. The next morning, sunlight streamed through the tall studio windows of Westwood Academy, scattering across polished floors and half-folded curtains that still smelled faintly of stage dust and roses. The gala was over, but the echoes of the night still pulsed through the corridors. Teachers walked with lighter steps. Students whispered in hushed tones, their voices rippling like wind through glass. And everywhere Lily went, silence followed her, not the cruel silence of mockery, but the reverent quiet reserved for all. She limped slightly as she carried her dance bag down the hallway, her ankle tightly bound beneath the fabric of her stockings. The world outside the studio had shifted overnight. Yesterday, she was a curiosity. Today, she was the girl who danced barefoot through pain and turned it into art. When she opened the studio door, the familiar scent of resin and polished wood greeted her. Madame Rousseau was already there, gazing at her reflection in the mirror, arms folded. Her sharp eyes softened as Lily stepped inside. You should be home resting, Rousseau said without turning. I tried, Lily answered with a faint smile. But the floor missed me. Rousseau chuckled quietly, shaking her head. Your mother called this morning. She said you fell asleep holding your ribbons. Lily's cheeks warmed. She's exaggerating. No, she's proud, Rousseau said. She turned and looked Lily in the eye. You made history last night. You didn't just dance, you told the truth. And the truth always lingers. Lily lowered her gaze, emotion tightening her throat. I was terrified, she admitted. My ankle was burning, my heart was pounding, and for a second I thought I'd fall. But you didn't, Rousseau said firmly. You flew. Lily blinked back tears. It felt like something bigger was carrying me. Rousseau's voice softened. That was your soul, child. Pain can weigh you down, or it can lift you higher than wings ever could. By noon, reporters and photographers had flooded the front lawn of the academy. The performance had gone viral overnight. A clip of Lily's barefoot leap had spread across social media, captioned, "The janitor's daughter who danced her way into history." The headline didn't embarrass her. It humbled her. Because to Lily, those words weren't an insult anymore, they were her truth. She walked through the crowd quietly, keeping her head down as flashes lit her path. Microphones stretched toward her. Lily, how does it feel to become an overnight sensation? Is it true you taught yourself to dance by watching through windows? Do you think you'll replace Victoria Hayes as the Academy's new star? Lily stopped, looked into the nearest camera, and spoke calmly. I never danced to replace anyone, she said. I danced because I couldn't imagine not dancing. The simplicity of her words silenced the chatter. Even the wind seemed to pause. Madame Rousseau appeared beside her, one hand on her shoulder, guiding her gently through the sea of flashing lights. Come, she said. There's someone I want you to meet. In the headmaster's office, sunlight spilled across shelves lined with trophies and photographs of smiling students. Seated across the mahogany desk was Alexander Grayson, the director from the New York Ballet Academy. His presence filled the room like quiet thunder. Miss Bennett, he said as Lily entered. I've seen thousands of performances, but yours, he paused, searching for words. Yours reminded me why I fell in love with dance in the first place. Lily stood still, hardly breathing. Thank you, sir. Grayson leaned forward. We'd like to offer you a full scholarship. Advanced training in New York. You'll study under some of the best choreographers in the world. The words seemed to echo through her chest. She glanced at Madame Rousseau, who nodded proudly. You've earned this, Rousseau said. Not because of pity or headlines, but because you're extraordinary. Lily swallowed hard. I don't know what to say. Say yes, Grayson replied with a gentle smile. Her voice broke. Yes. That afternoon, Lily found her mother in the janitor's closet, as always, her sleeves rolled up, her hands deep in a bucket of soapy water. Mom, Lily said softly. Mrs. Bennett turned, startled, her expression melting into a smile when she saw her daughter standing there in her leotard, ribbons trailing like silk vines. You should be resting. Lily knelt beside her, taking her mother's damp hands in her own. I'm leaving, she whispered. They're sending me to New York. Full scholarship. For a heartbeat, the world stilled. Then her mother's lip trembled, her eyes filling. Oh, Lily. I wouldn't have made it without you, Lily said. You gave me this dream. Mrs. Bennett cupped her daughter's face. I gave you a mop, she said with a shaky laugh. You turned it into a wand. They laughed through their tears, their foreheads pressed together. That evening, the Academy held a small celebration for the gala's performers. The ballroom glowed with chandeliers, laughter, and the faint hum of music. Students milled around, sipping punch and pretending not to stare at Lily. Victoria approached her near the refreshment table, her expression guarded. She wore her usual flawless smile, but there was something different in her eyes, a flicker of humility, maybe regret. You danced beautifully, Victoria said quietly. Thank you, Lily replied, her tone kind but steady. I was wrong, Victoria admitted, her voice low. About you. About everything. Lily hesitated. We all were, she said gently. Sometimes it takes losing the spotlight to see who we really are. For a moment, the two girls stood in silence. Then Victoria offered her hand. Good luck in New York. Lily smiled and shook it. You too, Victoria. Later that night, Lily slipped away from the crowd and returned to the darkened studio one last time. The air was still, the moonlight streaming through the window like liquid silver. She walked barefoot onto the floor, the cool wood welcoming her like an old friend. She looked around at the mirrors that had once reflected her invisibility and now reflected her triumph. Every scar on the floor, every scuff mark, every speck of dust seemed sacred. "Thank you," she whispered to the empty room. Then she began to dance, slowly, softly, without music. Her movements were simple, almost childlike. A turn. A reach. A small leap that barely lifted her from the ground. But in those quiet steps was everything she had ever been, the little girl peeking through the window, the janitor's daughter mopping the halls, the barefoot dancer who defied gravity. When she stopped, her breath trembled, and a single tear slipped down her cheek. Madame Rousseau stood in the doorway, unseen until that moment. "That," she said softly, "was the most beautiful dance I've ever witnessed." Lily turned, smiling. "It wasn't a dance," she said. "It was goodbye." Rousseau nodded, her voice barely a whisper. "Then go, child. Show the world what truth looks like in motion." The next morning, a taxi waited outside their small apartment. Her mother hugged her tightly, unwilling to let go. "Call me every day," she said. "I will," Lily whispered. As the car pulled away, Lily looked out the window. The academy grew smaller in the distance, its tall windows gleaming in the dawn light. For a moment, she imagined her reflection still dancing inside, forever spinning in that golden room. She leaned back, closed her eyes, and smiled. Because for Lily Bennett, the showcase had never been about winning or proving herself. It had been about telling the truth, her truth, and in doing so, she had discovered that real beauty isn't in perfection. It's in the courage to dance, even when your feet bleed. The streets of New York glistened under the pale winter sun, 1,000 windows reflecting light like scattered diamonds. Yellow taxis streamed past like flashes of gold, their horns blending with the hum of the city that never slept. To Lily Bennett, who stood on the steps of the New York Ballet Academy with her worn suitcase in hand, it felt like standing at the edge of another world. Her breath caught in her throat. She had dreamed of stages before, but none like this. The grand building rose before her, all marble pillars and towering glass doors. Dancers in scarves and sleek leotards passed her, speaking softly in accents from every corner of the world. It was both overwhelming and breathtaking, and for the first time, she wasn't looking through a window. She was walking through the door. She tightened her scarf and stepped inside. The scent of resin, sweat, and polish hit her immediately, familiar and comforting. Her heart began to race. This was it. The place where the world's best dancers had begun. And she, the janitor's daughter from Westwood, was one of them now. Her first day began at dawn. The training was brutal. The instructors were nothing like Madame Rousseau, whose passion softened even her sharpest critiques. Here, every word was measured, every mistake magnified. The head instructor, Madame Laurent, paced the rows of students like a hawk. "You are not here to move," she barked. "You are here to transform." By the third hour, Lily's legs trembled. The blisters on her feet reopened. But she didn't stop. Pain had been her teacher long before this place had. During a break, another dancer, a tall girl from Paris named Elise, handed her a towel and smiled. "You don't give up, do you?" Lily shook her head, panting. Giving up was never an option. Elise laughed softly. "Then you'll fit right in." That night, in her small dorm room overlooking the city, Lily called her mother. The signal crackled, but her mother's voice came through warm and steady. "I saw the pictures they posted online," Mrs. Bennett said. You looked like you belonged there. Lily smiled through exhaustion. I'm trying to. You already do, sweetheart, her mother said. You belong wherever you decide to stand. The words wrapped around her like a blanket. She fell asleep that night with her aching feet pressed against the cool sheets, her heart swelling with quiet pride. Weeks turned into months. The city's rhythm became her rhythm, fast, relentless, beautiful. Each morning began before sunrise, each night ended long after the last rehearsal. Her body hardened, her mind sharpened. But through the fatigue and the grind, she carried the same spark she had in that empty Westwood hallway, that hunger to be seen, to move, to tell stories through motion. One evening, as she stayed late in the academy studio, practicing alone, Alexander Grayson himself appeared at the door. I hear you've been living here, he said with a faint smile. Lily straightened, embarrassed. I just want to make sure I deserve the place you gave me. Grayson walked in slowly, hands clasped behind his back. Deserve, he repeated. Miss Bennett, you earned it. But talent isn't the end of the journey. It's the beginning of responsibility, to your art, and to those who will watch you. Lily nodded. I understand. He studied her for a moment, then said, next week, the Academy is hosting its annual winter gala. I want you to perform. Her eyes widened. Me? Yes. A solo, he said simply. The board thinks you're too new, but I think the world needs to see what passion looks like when it comes from nowhere. Her throat tightened. I won't let you down. I know, he said quietly. You never do. The week leading to the performance felt like a dream and a storm all at once. Lily practiced until the floor beneath her feet was slick with sweat. The piece she chose wasn't about perfection, it was about truth, just like Madame Rousseau had taught her. She dedicated the dance to her mother, to the invisible hands that had built her wings. The night of the gala arrived. Snow drifted lazily through the air outside, blanketing the city in soft white. Inside the Grand Theater, chandeliers glowed like captured stars. The audience was filled with critics, patrons, and legends of the dance world. The orchestra tuned their instruments, murmurs rippled like gentle thunder. Backstage, Lily stood alone, hands trembling. Her costume was simple, ivory silk, bare feet. No jewels, no glamour. Just her. She closed her eyes, whispering a prayer. For you, Mom. For everyone who ever felt unseen. The stage manager called her name. She stepped into the light. The music began, a slow violin, low and haunting. Lily moved gently at first, each gesture deliberate, every breath part of the rhythm. The crowd leaned forward. As the melody grew, so did her movement. She spun, lifted, and leaped, not with technical perfection, but with soul. Her bare feet slid and pressed against the floor like a heartbeat, her arms carving invisible stories in the air. The spotlight caught the glint of tears on her cheeks. She wasn't dancing for the audience, she was dancing through them, a living memory of every dreamer who had been told they didn't belong. Halfway through, she faltered, her ankle gave a small twist, the same one she'd injured months ago. Pain shot up her leg. A murmur rippled through the hall. But then she looked out into the dark rows and imagined her mother's face, smiling from the back row as she always had. And she rose again. The final crescendo built. She spun faster, her movements a storm of emotion, until the music cut suddenly, leaving her frozen mid-step, her hands lifted to the light. Silence. Then the theater exploded. Applause thundered through the hall, crashing like waves. People rose to their feet. Some wiped tears from their eyes. Lily bowed deeply, trembling, overwhelmed. From the corner of the stage, Alexander Grayson clapped slowly, pride shining in his eyes. "Welcome to the world, Miss Bennett," he said softly. That night, after the curtain closed and the applause faded, Lily stood alone on the stage, barefoot once again. Snowflakes drifted in through the open backstage door, melting on the wooden floor. She looked up at the empty seats, the vastness of the room, and smiled. Her phone buzzed, a message from her mother. "You made them feel what I've always known. You were born to dance." Tears welled in her eyes. She placed the phone over her heart and whispered, "I did it, Mom. We did it." Outside, the city glowed, endless lights, endless dreams. Somewhere in the night, another girl might be looking through a window, watching someone else dance, wondering if she could ever belong. Lily hoped she'd see this moment someday and know that she could. She turned toward the spotlight one last time, her reflection faint in the glossy stage. No longer the janitor's daughter. No longer unseen. Just Lily Bennett, dancer, dreamer, and rising star. And as the final lights dimmed, she took one last graceful bow, her bare feet whispering across the stage floor, leaving behind not just footprints, but a legacy.